Hello and welcome back to Game 2 of the EUWChallenger Series number 12, with the second game with H2k and CC. I am Pulse and I am joined by Spuddington. How's it going?
It's going pretty well for me right now. I am a little bit curious to see what the bans and picks will be this time, because I think definitely we need a rethink coming in here from H2k. Last game really didn't work for them, and it's worth noting last game they spent every single one of their bans banning out Spontex's favorite champions. He's apparently very famous for his Fizz, and he is very recently been playing a lot of Ari, and the other ban out was, I can't remember, but that was, I remember it being one of his champions. Anyway, I'm terrible. But as a result, if they're not going to do that this time, they may look to ban out what took them apart last game. So Pulse, which bans do you think are probably the most important here coming in from H2k?
Yeah, and we saw Lee Sin to great effect, and that really augmented their sort of snowballing potential, especially in the early game and then when he got to mid-game. And I would actually say it never really got to mid-game because they just crushed them so hard in the laning phase. I'm interested because Nexus actually, not a Nexus, H2k, but it's the older Nexus lineup, banned out Zach Fresh, who they were actually playing themselves, and then are picking what looks like an entirely different composition. Because if you think back to the first game, they were very hard into the team fight. They had initiation, but no real potential to keep them there when they had initiated, and they got shut down in laning phase. But looking for something which not only has a stronger early game, but allows them to transition and actually get themselves out of that position where they aren't being shut down in 20 minutes.
Yeah, alright. So I'm actually casting from the stream for this brief period. So that is to say champion select, so I'll be a little bit behind. But what I've seen right now is the Elise being picked out first there by Broken Shard, and then the Lee Sin getting stolen away. So it may be that both teams here are looking to run a very different composition, because I am surprised that they didn't get Broken Shard that Lee Sin, considering how powerful it was last game and how amazingly kind of open it was there. They had first pick, it was available, and they didn't even run Elise last game. They still went for it.
If they play Elise this game, it may well be that they pick Elise in the jungle. We've seen it several times, specifically Impaler is the first person who comes to mind from Dignitas UK, who runs it in the jungle exceptionally well. A very similar role to Lee Sin in the jungle, very strong in early game trades, sort of like level 1 to 3 with the double buff. Almost no jungle can really match up to that early game of Elise. It's so strong. So in trading scenarios, she can also counter jungle. She's very good at ganking. So a very similar role and very similar playstyle. Maybe that's what they're shooting for.
Yeah, Elise is the classic jungler at the moment who kind of, along with Lee Sin, she is the jungler where you can't afford to go into your own jungle on 50% HP, because you'll suddenly eat the stun, you'll eat the volatile spiderling neurotoxin combo, straight into spider form, venomous bite, and you're dead. Like, that's what those kind of guys do. However, when they're against each other, they kind of always nullify that, so it becomes much more about that ganking the actual lanes, as opposed to doing that whole counter-ganking thing in the jungle. However, we have got the Ashe Zyra coming out once again here, and Sona Caitlyn this time against it. Do you really feel that's going to be majorly different?
Not too much difference at all, really, in the bot lane. I think it will be, if not more even, maybe slightly slip into the hands of CC's lineup, because Ashe Zyra is so good at poking and has that range. Worth noting that Ashe has 600 range compared to 650 of Caitlyn, and to put that into perspective, that's like half a Teemo. So it's not a huge difference compared to Caitlyn's 650 range over someone like a normal AD carry who would have 550 range. So that really helps in that respect, and Zyra has that long range, and she has the damage on top of that. So very sort of similar supports in the sense they both have damage. But again, H2k favouring that strong team fighting composition with Rumble and those big AoE ultimate just as the Crescendo from Sona. So we're looking for the last pickup from Limits of Reversal. What are you expecting here to round out the lineup?
For a mid laner that is open, that can cope with this scenario, I have to say I would really like an Ari pick right now. It's a very solid generalist pick, does pretty well against Kha'Zix in a lane, also is capable of kiting away from the AoE, dodging the kind of ice arrows and the the cocoons, using that ultimate, not the flash. It would be very strong if they went for it, but Rise would be a pick we haven't seen in a while. Twisted Fate also an option. Again, casting from the stream, so I'm a little bit behind. Pulse, what have they locked in here?
Yeah, they actually ended up locking in the Karthus, so looking for even more AoE, which is interesting because the Karthus pick didn't work out last time, if only because they got shut down in the early game. This time they're actually bringing out the Lee Sin, so maybe a more aggressive jungler will allow them to maybe get into those team fights. But again, they're actually lacking a bit of initiate.
Yeah, it seems strange. I mean, you can initiate with Rumble. Okay, you can get the insect maneuver from Lee Sin, and that's okay. You can, use those ultimates to set up fights, but it's not usually optimal. If you're trying to engage with the Rumble ult, by the time you actually catch up to them, to get the Karthus in on the fight, it's gonna already be, they're kind of already out of the horrible position that the Equalizer can put them in, unless it's like a really messy jungle fight. By the time you got that one guy out of position with the insect maneuver, that puts Lee Sin in a dangerous position. He can get focused down. It's just a little bit iffy. Whereas that Ahri would give them a lot of ability to kind of pick people off and punish them. It gives them an answer essentially to the style of gameplay we saw in the last game coming out from Croissant Crusaders. But we'll see what they choose to go for. We are into the delay timer now, so another 3 minutes till this game actually starts. And when that happens, we will be here, we will be casting. But for now, here comes an ad break. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Spuddington. I am joined by Pulse. This is the EUWChallenger Series number 12, the second quarterfinal of today, and the entire lineup of Croissant Crusaders just walked right past award. Pulse, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, and we should talk very quickly, just in case someone dies. What has come out from H2k doesn't look like they're going to fully commit with the Sonic Wave of the War from Dota God. Will repel this assault for now. It may, in fact, go for a secondary invade onto the red buff. They are definitely looking for it. They have a very strong level 1 fight, especially with Elise and the grassing roots courtesy of 6, but just putting down the aggressive wards.
Yeah, so Limited Reversal has actually opted to start with a Fairy Charm, which I actually don't particularly like, especially in competitive settings. Because now you'll notice she's had to put down a lot of wards defensively to make sure this level 1, which was really strong coming out of Croissant Crusaders, to make sure nothing bad came of that. And now she just isn't really going to have much toward her own actual lane, or if they need any more in their own jungle, they're just not going to have them available. It does, however, look like Sona and Kaylin are going to rotate to this top lane, so they will get a 2v1 if they want it.
Yeah, because what's typical is you'll just go sight wards and you'll pick up maybe 1 or 2 vision wards, allowing you not only to ward the enemy jungle, but even counter ward your own jungle, just in case they put down the ward, and then you can counter wards it with a pink ward, and that, cuts off some of that vision from the early game from the enemy team. This is what she hasn't done. She's gone into the top lane, and I can actually see that if they premeditated the swap up, because it will give him even more harassing ability with the extra regen. Being on the bot lane, Xaxus will be trading off against them, and now you can really see the Rumble pick, because Rumble is so strong in those 1 versus 2s.
Yeah, he both scales extremely well off experience and also functions extremely well in 2-on-1 gank situations, so you end up in a 2-on-2. He's actually going to just wander off because he can't really do anything in his lane to give Dota God a little bit of a hand, although that will clue them in that he's gone and done that. They're probably going to have been able to guess that Dota God was there anyway.
Yeah, it's not an unreasonable guess to think he'll go red buff and blue buff and maybe look for the mid lane gank. At the same time, they may have just thought he was going for the wolves, and it will in fact be the case as he's assisted by Dota God, just to give him a little bit of XP, and just generally try and wait until the minions hit his turret. The typical play when you are in 1 versus 2 is try and CS from range and do what you can, but just generally try and stay in the XP range, but back off to your turret, wait until that happens, and try and CS underneath there. By backing off, it's a very intelligent play in that sense. Xaxus is still level 1, Dota God actually just coming into the bot lane, just going 2 versus 2, just giving him a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, he's level 3, and that lane froze for a very long time, which means, Xaxus had all the time in the world to go and do whatever he wanted. Broken Shard is kind of mirroring his counterpart in that top lane to the bot lane. You've got both the junglers just supporting their laners there. And like I said, I do think this will probably favor H2k a little bit more, just because Rumble functions very well in those 2-on-2 scenarios. Got a lot of damage on his base damages, has that spammable shield, which is good in protracted fights like 2v2s, and also his damage is mostly AoE.
Yeah, and the benefit of also bringing your jungler down there means that another typical play when you're in the 1 versus 2 is to bring your jungler down and then have a 3 versus 1 and look for the tower dive when they're level 1 as well. So that's something just to try and mitigate that, and both junglers actually read that as a potential to happen. And Sonic Wave lands, they might be following with Xaxus level 3 versus 2 level 3s, along with Dota God, who has level 4 Ignite, comes down, lands an auto attack, and the Sonic Wave onto 6. First Blood's picked up, and the Flash doesn't quite connect the auto attack, and neither the Tempest, but 1 for 0. Not a bad trade.
Yeah, and this is a much better start here for H2k than they got in the previous game, where honestly the momentum was just against them from minute 1 almost. That was really good though. It was a clutch Q by Dota God to land that, and then they just had tons and tons of follow-up damage from Xaxus. They also had that Ignite, and it just meant Ashe, no escape, didn't even pop that barrier actually. And Zyra had no escape and did get destroyed in that scenario. Whereas in this top lane, yes, if Broken Child lands a stun, they can do a decent bit of follow-up onto Celiva, but Kennen is not going to be able to burn him down. He's got a bit of burst, he's, might be better at trading in lane, but he's not going to be like Rumble. He's not going to chase you down and burn you to death.
Yeah, and another benefit of H2k swapping up their bot lane to the top lane means that because they have such a strong pushing composition of not only Sona but also the Caitlyn, who is incredibly strong in 1 versus 2s, is that Broken Shot is forced to stay at top lane with Kennen, because Kennen just can't sustain himself, he can't farm under turret by himself, and Broken Shot is kept up there. That early potential from Elise where you can trade off against the enemy jungler and 100% win, or go for those ganks which are extremely strong, he can't do that. So that's been mitigated, and at the same time, Lee Sin can go for those ganks. And Rumble was so good in those 2 versus 2s, those 1 versus 2s, so again he can get kills, as we saw earlier as a result. So Lee Sin now the mobility boots, a very aggressive play indeed.
Yeah, he's going to be able to roam anywhere he wants, and that just gives him that edge over Broken Shot, who right now has got that Spirit Stone, will make him a more sustained jungler than DotaGod, who doesn't even have any pots, but it actually looks like he's going to use that mobility and force a 3-on-1 situation up here. This tower will fall on the push, whereas Xaxis in the spot lane, there's no way he's going to lose that on this wave, albeit it is a very big wave.
Yeah, H2k, intelligent play, but with Spontex heading down, this will definitely be the counter. Xaxis doesn't land the grasping roots, follow it with leap straight into Taste Their Fear. Profana still tanking the turret though, has managed to get himself out. Now Spontex taking some hits, but with Void Assault coming up, will be able to get himself out of dodge, and Broken Shot coming down to reclaim the turret.
There's no way they'll lose their tower, he says. Keep my mouth shut, but just to prove me wrong there, forcing essentially a mirror situation. They went 3-on-1 on the top lane, and that meant it was a heavy commitment of manpower, and a 3-on-1 on that bottom lane in response. However, that will mean that DotaGod is down here. He's got those mobility boots, got down there pretty sharpish, and that means they can sort of, just get that little bit of an edge, because while Kha'Zix was forced to move around, he has allowed Karthus that free farming time. It's also worth noting, that matchup has gone much, much better this time for Overpower.
Yeah, now transitioning onto the Drake, they should be able to pick up this with relative ease. Hawk comes across, will reveal them, but Spontex, there's no one really low enough for him to start them up, especially with the evolution point only in queue at the moment. Rest of the team kind of congregating around that area, but very good timing play from H2k.
Yeah, it's one of those classic things though. Playing the same matchup twice does not necessarily go the same way. Kha'Zix snowballs really, really hard. Early on last time, Overpower gave up that, I think it was first blood, in fact, to Kha'Zix, which just enabled him to snowball the rest of the game. Plus, they had more aggressive ganks coming out of Broken Shard when he was on Lee Sin. And in my humble opinion right now, I feel like Broken Shard has not had the influence he had last game right now on that Elise. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's like what we were saying with him being wrapped up a top lane, because he wasn't able to go for those gangs. All he was really doing was just allowing Kennen not to be completely shut down.
Yeah, and whereas Lee Sin managed to not allow Xaxis to be shut down and simultaneously be influential everywhere else as well and get those kills, which is kind of what you typically want. Xaxis getting pressured up against his tower once again. This is actually dangerous for him. DotaGod is still doing red buff. Spontex is behind, and that's a massive minion wave. He hasn't hit 6 yet, but he might hit it off this creep wave.
Yeah, they're against the clock, but with Slicing Maelstrom coming in, Kennen will be backing off. Spontex looking to finish the kill, finally get to Taste Their Fear, but now DotaGod comes in, lands the ult split, great juke out of the way of Sonic Wave, Requiem comes down, doesn't pick up the kill with the Hex Ranker coming out, saving his life, Ace the Hole comes across, Broken Shard body blocks it, everyone's so low, Safeguard into Sonic Wave, followed with the auto attacks, Cocoon comes down, everyone incredibly low, pity they didn't have a second Requiem, another flash out of the Sonic Wave, surely no one's gonna do it, they turn it around into DotaGod, Repel comes up, and Spontex is still there. Unbelievable from CC.
Such good damage juggling, and such, like, that was several flashes in fairness to DotaGod there. But perhaps he chased it just that little bit too far there. He was so hungry for blood, but he couldn't get it. That has cost him his life. Overpower, however, in this bottom lane, has been given the chance to push actually surprisingly hard the well-known Karthus split push. But he does clear minions very fast. Won't kill the tower quite as fast. But that kind of chase where DotaGod was preventing everyone from recalling may actually have worked out in their favor, even though he possibly could have done a little better for himself by exiting stage right a little earlier.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that H2k are still about 200 to 300 gold ahead at the moment, which isn't a huge amount, but they are still ahead, which is something that was very different from the first game because they had aggressed onto them so hard, they were almost at this stage already being shut down and already pushing in for the win. And Brookachard saying, what's up? Because we have had a disconnect, so we will just kind of fill time until that comes back in.
Yeah, well, we have had a disconnect and we have had a pause, which I dare say you can see. It's just one of those unfortunate things that does occur. Celiver is the one who has disconnected. Or is he Kellever? Is he Celiver? I'm going to call him Celiver because it looks like celery to me.
Celery.
But you know, maybe someone who would pronounce that name correctly could inform me somewhere. But
I know Stress calls him Celiver.
Celiver.
I know Metas calls him Kellever.
But then again, he calls Ari.
You're a wizard, Ari.
You're a wizard, Ari. No offense to Metas, he's a lovely person.
He could probably cosplay as Hagrid, let's be honest.
He probably could.
Yeah. There's no real token Asian in Harry Potter, apart from like that girl who like appeared for an episode and then it was like a lot of fan backlash.
Cho Chang. I remember. Yeah. I remember. I read
Never
those
forget.
books.
Cho Chang, never forget.
But anyway, I think we have had the reconnect coming in from Celiver. Yeah, from a Nexus Celiver, who is not in a Nexus.
Celery.
But I guess we don't have infinite money to change our names all the time, as you can see on actually several of these players with old team tags still in their name. But H2k Celiver over there in the mid lane, pushing out minions, has disconnected, has reconnected, and life goes on. Spontex now looking like he might be starting up kind of a split push style.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. Many times we actually see Kha'Zix go for Tiamat straight into Ravenous Hydra, or just leaving it as the Tiamat to increase wave clear. Because with most Kha'Zixes no longer actually putting the evolution point into W, they have less wave clear. And if they can wave clear, then they have to group up all the minions. But that means you don't need to, you can't have your minions around because it will split them up away from that ball, so you can't instantly clear them. With Tiamat, it gives you more split pushing capability, especially if you're ahead or even if you're behind. Not only will you be able to out-trade them if you are ahead, but he is just a very strong split pusher in general. Many tools to get out of dodge if he needs to.
Yeah, he used to be an incredibly powerful split pusher because his W was innate wave clear and also incredibly good poke. So, yeah, Kha'Zix used to be a bit silly at that. Nowadays, it is, as you say, his wave clear that hamstrings him. The problem with going Tiamat on Kha'Zix is he spends a lot of his time in casting animations. Spontex not going to get chased down by Dota God there.
Yeah, Tiamat really works well because you can cast the Tiamat passive, or rather active, when your cooldowns your animations are cooling down, because it's like 3 parts to a skill. That's also why it really works well on Lee Sin where you go for damage builds, because if you use like Tempest and there's that little bit of time where you can't do anything else, you can use the active and it will actually result in more damage and more burst.
So we'll see what he chooses to go for. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually just shot for that more Malmortius, which we saw him go for last game. Not a common pickup, but he's certainly building towards it at the moment, although that could be a last whisper. So more Malmortius actually worth talking about in some respects, because I believe as an item in terms of straight up efficiency, actually Spontex in the bottom lane going aggressive.
Yeah, Dota God drops low, ward jump to the side, lands the Q onto the minion, doesn't choose to follow it, flash over the wall, running back into his own territory, revealed by the ward. Karthus coming in from the side, and limits reversal from stage left, but Spontex has been...
Yes, arrow!
Ace in the hole comes across, Ice Arrow!
Hit limits, it would have hit him.
Great body block, predicted.
Yeah, he knew that was coming a mile off. But that is showing the power of Spontex as a split pusher. He is very capable of killing people that try and stop him, which is quite a useful trait in a split pusher. Although, as we mentioned, wave clear, so he's not going to push as fast. And I don't think he's able to assassinate Overpower at the moment. However, Overpower is being forced to react to the flow of the game. This is quite a risky spot here. I think he was spotted. They must know he's there, and did they find him?
Looks like he's caught in transition. He still has the flash though. If he needs it, will flash over the wall. Dota God lands Sonic Wave, picking up the blue buff in return. And they will be backing on off. But again, just picking up objective after objective, slowly grinding them down. Not as fast paced as it was last time. But Dota God finds himself caught by Broken Shot. Cocoon lands, now backing off onto Drake. We'll see if the engagement comes out.
Yeah, well, they could go for it here. Overpower's a little bit low. They haven't got Rumble in quite the correct position, and that's going to be another free advantage to Croissant Crusaders. Worth noting, again, CC were we're behind early on, but they've been kind of slowly clawing it back. They've been, taking these small advantages, getting that dragon, getting the picks, forcing the flashes, and Spontex is applying that pressure with the split push. You've got guys in the mid lane like Ashe just constantly pressuring hard. It feels as if the momentum is kind of falling away from H2k. They need a lot of farm for their comp to work really, really well because of Caitlyn and Coffers, but I feel like they aren't taking the initiative very much at the moment.
Yeah, great picking potential from CC, and I'm looking at the team fight potential from both of these teams. In fact, if they do go for the team fights, they're both really looking to split up the team fight, and then obviously from H2k they want, from Croissant Crusaders, they want Spontex to be able to assassinate people using the Cannon Ultimate to split people up in the same way that Stranglethorns will, and they will initiate with Ashe Arrow. Very, very strong, you can see what they're shooting for. And then Zaxxas as well with Equalizer, again looking to split them up, or even just land them on top of Overpower. But again, they don't really have too many tools to lock them in place. They do have Crescendo, however, which they didn't have last game. But you could also see something like a Jarvan. Like, something just to lock them all in one place. Lock them in with the Carthers, and then have Equalizer land on top of all of it.
But it was very crucial to their kind of game plan to take away that Lee Sin. They had to make sure they secured that. But, yeah, they may be paying for that choice now. As it happens, it does seem like they are going to lose another tower in this top lane and not have much answer to it. They are playing a game at the moment where it seems like they are just planning on winning the late game, if at all. But I'm not sure that's going to work for them because Kha'Zix is not going to stop scaling up. Ashe is going to be incredibly powerful. The Kennen, the Zyra. It's a really good team fight that comes out of Croissant Crusaders in the late game. And maybe Carthus Caitlyn will scale a little bit harder, but they're not going to have an answer to the split push. They're not going to be able to utilize that Rumble ult quite as well in the late game. It's just all looking a bit more rosy for Croissant Crusaders and a little bit less so for their counterparts.
Yeah, it's a lot more even than the first game, and they definitely have the potential still to teamfight into late game as long as they don't fall too far behind. 3k is not a huge deal when you get into late game teamfights, but at the moment they need to stop the bleeding because they are just losing objective after objective. If not in turrets, but also in the form of dragons. And now the split pushing is also coming down from Crusaders. And because they are ahead, they're using the fact that they have great duelist potential in the form of Kennen with Slicing Maelstrom, who is inherently a very good split pusher and duelist, and also the fact that Kha'Zix is fed, and again a very good duelist, to just split push all over the board.
And there's a big group up now coming in from Croissant Crusaders. They're going to pressure this bottom tower. Caitlyn will move up there. Actually, it does look like they're just going to back out, let the farm happen, and recall. They have already rotated Ashe out to go back. We can expect to see Spontex maybe go back fairly shortly if he wasn't already. In fact, he's got about 1,000 gold and could be getting caught here. Dota God is round the corner.
Yeah, Lee coming in, doesn't land the Tempest and cough out the cripple, but lands a perfect Sonic Wave, follows up with the Spontex, Ace Null comes across, lands onto the backside of Kha'Zix. Equalizer comes out to split off the Brew, great juke out of the way of Sonic Wave, doesn't quite pick up the kill, in fact the Ignite finishes it enough, and Requiem comes out, there's no running away from this one.
Okay, Requiem gets it. So unfortunate that Q missed from Dota God. He just straight up flubbed it there, though. I mean, it was a panic situation. If it had landed, guaranteed kill. I mean, he had like 20 health, maybe. But the Hex Drinker shield meant he didn't have to worry about Rumble's damage, and Carthus couldn't Requiem immediately either. Nice deal on the Wraith there by Prathana, but so unfortunate there. That was kind of what they needed. They needed to take advantage of the mobility boots on Dota God, and they need to catch people out. And they also need to get vision control to make that kind of catch happen.
Yeah, but if you think about it, that was, what, committing 2 people? In fact, 3 people were facing the hole from Caitlyn, and that was just a deal with Spontex. In the meanwhile, the rest of the team was pushing over the wall. They didn't manage to pick up a tower, but it's just kind of the presence that a single character and a single player can draw. And even with Kennen being such a good duelist, he can do the same thing. He can replicate what Spontex was doing with Profaner landing a great Ashe Arrow on to Dota God, looking for the ward jump, maybe in the future. Decides against it, actually throwing out the Sonic Wave. I'm not sure if it will actually save his life, but that was some interesting mechanics and mind games.
It was a pretty good attempt at getting away after the Ash Arrow had hit, but I don't understand why he was in that position in the first place, maybe looking for some kills. But again, it's a serious problem right now for not X and X's, H2k. He says, remembering again for like I've remembered and forgotten it like 5 times now. But Spontex, Broken Shard 6 gonna be pushing down this tower, and we'll take that away pretty quickly if they're not careful. And this is just looking really, really bad. There's not a lot of vision control. Limited Reversal does not have an Oracles, and you can see from his ward positioning, he's aware of that. But he needs to get that vision control because they can't deal with the split push without having vision of their jungle, because they'll never know if they're catching someone out 1v2 if they can't see where their opponents actually are at the time.
Yeah, we're now hitting that stage, which is very classic in these sorts of long-term sieges, where they are just pushing all over the board, kind of just chipping away at the turrets and kind of just grinding them down. And the counterplay, obviously, from H2k is to react faster, and they have less of a ways to run. But we will rapidly approach the stage where they'll get tanky enough to dive those turrets. We'll see what these players are building. We were looking for Broken Shard to tank some of that damage out, and now Kennen moving in, slicing Maelstrom, locks up Zaxxas, and he dies before we even get out of it. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Dota God falls, 2 picks come out. I talk about mobility, but the mobility doesn't help when you die.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate again. And it's worth noting, once again, that Baron is not warded right now. Prathana is low on mana, so I don't think there's any need to, and the Ash Arrow is on cooldown, but this pressure is just not going to let up. Spontex has gone to take away that blue buff, and Prathana is going to continue to push. Actually, Ace in the Hole coming out, and the Crescendo.
Yeah, Caliber follows up with Ace in the Hole. 6 is still there. He's following with more damage. Pillswinger picks up the kill. Requiem comes across. Should be the money shot. Picks up the kill onto Zyra. And with her dying breath, lands grasping roots to save the life of their ally of Prathana. But 2-for-0 trade. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good windfall there, and a very, very good crescendo. They will now have an opportunity, and I really, really hope they take it, get some wards down in the jungle in really valuable places, because right now they've got a lot of key choke points that are not warded by KMT.H2k. They don't have their blue buff warded, they don't have that entrance on the Banana Brush near Dragon, and they also do not have Baron warded. There we go, Limits of Reversal putting down 1. But by the time he's recalled and gotten more wards, and I hope he gets an Oracle this time, by the time he's done that, he's going to start having to worry about that threat when he moves into his jungle of the Cocoon and the Ice Arrow, because that's always a scary thing when you're playing a support. You really, really don't want to have to walk into a jungle that you haven't got warded, which makes it harder to then ward it, which is awkward.
Yeah, I feel that vision is the game changer right now for them, and it's really just paramount to their success in this game. If they don't have the vision, they'll never be able to kind of replicate those picks, and they'll never be able to come back with an objective. 2 picks are fine, but that's really as far as it goes, unless you can relate that into another objective. Maybe even Baron when we get to that stage. 22 minutes, it is plausible, and now the pressure comes out from Croissant Crusaders, so kind of pushing the deal. And it doesn't look like they will react to it. No pings have come down currently from H2k, and I just don't think they realise they've gone through the Spontex in the mid, and this could be one of the last nails in the coffin.
Yeah, once again, a lack of vision control right now has cost them an entire Baron. That's huge. 6 Broken Shard, like, all 5 members get it, all 5 members get away. They've got the opportunity to back if they want to, and they probably will for a little bit of healing. But it just means that they are even further ahead, having not really fought very much for it. They, it's not one of those kind of times where they've gone in, they've forced the enemy team back and taken them down really, really low, and then taken the Baron. They've just kind of de-warded and then taken the Baron for free, and there's just not a lot of oomph. They need more gumption, I feel, on the side of H2k.
Yeah, there's not very. They don't really have. Well, they do have answers, but they're not answering. They're just kind of sitting at the turrets and farming and just waiting for the inevitable push coming in from Crusaders. which is not something you can really afford to do when you're behind, because you will just gradually become more behind unless you attempt to make a play. Sure, if it doesn't work out, you will lose the game anyway, but with this style of gameplay, they'll still lose. They just have to make a risky play. High risk, high reward.
Yeah, these things are a little bit unfortunate, but regardless, Odamne there going to be taking an ace in the hole for his trouble, stealing away that blue buff. Not allowed today. Dotagod is the one that picks it up though, and it looks like a fight is going to kick off.
Yeah, Enchanted Crystal Arrow comes across, picks up the kill, flash immediately from Kenneth, splits up the fight and forces them back. 1 for 2 trade, and now the follow-up from Spontex in with the cleanup. See if we can pick up another onto limits. Reversal lands the leap, gets locked up underneath turret, and will be backing up, but 3 for 1 trade. And now they'll be putting down some serious hurt to that base.
So he's sufficiently beefy right now, that is Spontex, to just jump under a tower, take the crescendo and damage from overpower, and not care, and jump after limits of reversal once again.
Yeah, Spontex looking to clean this kill. In fact, the volley picks it up very cleanly and very neatly indeed, picking up the middle inhibitor turrets. And, well, as we always say, Spunnies can pick up the inhibitor, and that's kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that means that you will have the super minions pushing down, you will have other lanes pushing even harder because of the health bonus on those new creeps, and they were already applying that split pushing pressure. I don't know if anything can be done at this stage for H2k. They are just not reacting well to this pressure, and they did not take a big enough early game advantage to snowball it super hard. So maybe this is just where their team comp is falling down. Last game, picked almost too strong of a team fight comp, got kind of split pushed and pressured and outlaned. Now feels like that Lee Sin pick, maybe they're undoing at this stage.
Yeah, we could see exactly why they took it off them, because they were trying to take the Lee Sin away from them because of their performance in the first game. It might have just been worth allowing one of those picks to go through, maybe something like the Thresh or the Zac that came out, but right now they really needed something like a Jarvan, because Jarvan would have the early game ganking potential that Lee Sin possesses, and he would keep them in place so they could land all those big ultimates, the big AoE damage, and even if they were behind, they could still go for team fights as a result of that. But right now, it's just not looking like they have any recourse.
And you can see there's a very simple game plan coming out from Croissant Crusaders right now. They are going to go top with everyone except Kennen, and they are going to push top with everyone except Kennen. Kennen looking like he might rotate round. Rumble being trapped in that bot lane because his wave clear is not that brilliant. And the pressure is coming down on this tower. If anyone gets out of position, they could get Ice Arrowed. If anyone gets out of position, they could get Kha'Zix'd. And that is not something that, well, that KMT.H2k are willing to deal with.
Yeah, when we hit the next turret, we may even see a tower dive. Harass over the wall. They're not going to completely go all in. They don't have the tools in their arsenal to all jump over, kind of Dunk Squad style. Huh? Yeah, they wouldn't really need to, exactly, but at the moment they just need to chunk away at these turrets and they'll still be in good shape. Middle inhibitor is down, and Ice Arrow comes across, weaves straight in between, but still the initiation comes out from Spontex. In fact, just some damage onto Dotagod, and I say just some damage, but from 100% to 40% onto Lee Sin.
Yeah, he's level 11, level 12, so not quite as high level as, say, the opponent's AD carry, who is at level 16 at this point, which is a very significant gap. Dotagod almost looks like he's kind of given up the ghost, just standing around on the backline, I guess looking to bait like a 4v5 dive to come out from Croissant Crusaders, but they're not falling for it. They're just going to wait, they're just going to use Ash's auto-attack range to poke, and Celiba's actually been caught.
Yeah, they see someone out in position like Celiba, then they could pick up a kill in return. Xaxus pushing out the minion wave. Ace in the hole comes across, just kind of deter them away from the turret. Cocoon lands, but Safeguard's animation comes in before. And as long as they can just keep on chunking away at this turret, their objective has been, does succeed.
However, the Baron buff has now timed out. So KMT have put down a couple of wards by their own tower, which is a little bit interesting there, and may be telling of the mindset currently in their camp. Oh damn, they're going to be running away, and maybe this is their last-ditch attempt, but they just can't get the engage to happen. The disengage is too good from Zyra, and the damage potential is too good from Prothana and from Spontex.
Ideally, they want to land a Sonic Wave onto Profound and try and insect him into his team. And if they get that pick, then they could go for the team fight. But even with Kennen there, and with Spontex, they're so fed and they do so much damage and they're so well farmed. They will probably still win the team fight. They could still win a 4 versus 5 even without Profana there. Profana, at the moment, does a lot of damage, but he's also there for that engagement. So it's almost getting to the point where H2k just can't engage upon them and they can't turtle it out. That's still not an option. We've mentioned how strong they are late game, but with having that inhibitor down, they can never truly turtle.
Yeah, and plus the Baron will be respawning relatively shortly. Don't have the exact time on my screen because I am bad at reading. Went down at 22:38, which should mean it'll be up very, very soon indeed. In fact, and you can see Broken Child heading over there now, going to ward out the area, I suspect. And yeah, as was mentioned, this is now kind of last chance saloon. They need to make an engagement that works for them happen on KMT, and they just can't afford to let themselves get pressured back. They also can't afford, at this point, to let the full 5-on-5 engage happen. It's a really, really tough call, and the Ice Arrow has come in on Overpower.
It was just a matter of time. Zhonya's comes out, Zaxxas follows up, Isnaho comes across, and now Kennen locks him up, splits up the team fight, and this is completely scattered. Spontex picks up one, looks for the reset, now moving on to Kellever. This could be the triple. In fact, takes it away from Ash, and now the inhibitors respawn, but that's the 5-0 clean ace.
Yeah, that's going to be the game right there. And indeed, the surrender vote came in there. So, as I mentioned, gumption. A concept which is inherently British, but which is also something that I see occasionally in certain teams. It feels like they just lose the drive to make calls happen. And in this case, it was kind of exacerbated by their team comp not having a lot of engage. But I feel like H2k could have done a better job of forcing them with what tools they had. I think I saw one crescendo engage happen in the entire game, and they needed stuff to happen. Even if they had to wait for a full flash cooldown each time, at least it would have been better than just slowly bleeding pressure, bleeding objectives, bleeding towers, and all the rest.
Yeah, even if it came down to one risky play, something that was just kind of out there, which was very risky, but may have just taken Crusaders off guard because they wouldn't have expected them to do it when they were that far behind. They needed something, and I think the concept of gumption is very apt in this situation, Spuddington, because as you said, they just hemorrhaged gold, they hemorrhaged objectives until they eventually pushed in. There's very little to it. That was just the pace of the game.
Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate, but that is the last game that we have today for you, ladies and gentlemen. We will have reruns coming up after this short break, but if you have enjoyed my casting and indeed pulses, you could find us on our social media, which will be coming up in chat in just a second. For myself, it is at Spuddington, which is twitter.com/Spuddington, and indeed facebook.com/SpuddingtonCast. Pulse, I believe you have a set of things yourself, and I do have one thing to say afterwards.
Yes, indeed, and you know what, Spuddington? Now our social media is on the overlays, courtesy of our fantastic production queue. I don't know why I said Q. I meant to say crew. Yes. But I am quite tired. But yeah, our social media is on screen for you. So if you can't access the chat, you can definitely access the stream, and it will be rotating. Metas, who was, I believe, casting before with Enzy, who hasn't casted for a very long time indeed. Check him out. But I am Pulse. You can follow me at Twitter at Impossible, or YouTube or Facebook /What'sYourPulse. So until next time, guys, we will talk to you later. Spuddington, I believe you have one more thing to add.
I think I just decided I would reiterate what happened earlier, okay? We will have the reruns coming up of the games in just a second, but there was a player in the team Asian Maids Are Sweet. He was a smurf of a player who has been permabanned by Riot, and indeed, they said one step further, they permabanned his account, and then they said, we will permaban every account you ever make on site. As a result of that player being in the team, they were disqualified. Reason Gaming, however, then said, well, actually, we respect how well you played, even in spite of your having that player. He wasn't what won you the game. So they actually then forfeited, but then, all right, Asian Maids Are Sweet then said, actually, no, we will drop out. no matter what. So Reason Gaming will be advancing on to the next game, and we will see them again tomorrow, in spite of the fact they did lose the best of 3 earlier on. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from us today, and we will hope to see you again tomorrow.